Welcome, everyone, back to I Want to Teach English. And today I have a very special guest, someone who's very well known in the world, especially those when you're having conversations in education about SLIFE and newcomers, people who are learning English and, have all kinds of formal educational, maybe interrupted ed and other gaps that happen along the way because of all kinds of situations from their home countries. I'm really pleased and excited to introduce you all Dr. Carol Salva. Dr. Carol, welcome to the show. Welcome to I Want to Teach English.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, I said to you before we went on that, I've been trying to get your attention for a while, only because I'm such an admirer of your work, and also from my district, from where I work. Um, it seems like your name gets thrown out there a lot, and I've had to read, during PDs and going through the process of the things that you, and I really became familiar with some of your work. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that this is a very exciting moment for me, and I'm really glad you came on the show. But I want you to share with our audience, because maybe some people know you, maybe some people don't. I want you to talk a little bit about your experiences with SLIFE and explain just kind of in layman's terms what that means, especially for those new teachers that are just entering the field of English learners.
Well, thank you so much for your kind words, but you're doing amazing work out there. I appreciate all the content you're creating. It's such an honor for me to be here. And so I appreciate your kind words so much.
Thank you, Dr. Salva.
For some mutual respect here.
Mhm.
For people who don't know me, I work for a company called Sidelitz Education. We offer consulting, training, coaching, modeling for language acquisition, language-rich interactive classrooms. Sidelitz Education, that's the foundation of what we do. So we have different divisions. We're a pretty small company, consulting company, but I am the lead of our newcomer division. And my area of expertise is the student with limited or interrupted formal education. Maybe doesn't have any formal education when they arrive into our classrooms.
Right.
And I wrote a book about this with my co-author. Her name is Anna Mattis, and we're both consultants for Sidelitz. I was teaching high school in Houston, Texas, where I live, and when we started writing that book, and I was not working for Sidelitz Education, but I was using their techniques, and I was applying them to students who it was more than just language acquisition. Like you can tell, we could talk a little bit about SLIFE for students with limited or interrupted education.
Sure.
So Anna is my co-author, and that was several years ago. Now we've updated that book. It's the second edition. It's called Boosting Achievement, Reaching Students with Limited or Interrupted Formal Education, Reaching SLIFE. And that second edition has quite a bit. It has the literacy. We've learned a lot about literacy in the last few years, Jose, what do you say?
Yes, we have.
Right. So with these students, we're not just talking about syncing up or transferring our the literacy from their heritage language. Sometimes they don't have that literacy in their heritage language. So we have some work around that. But a lot of work that we do is inclusion in grade level classrooms while they're gaining language, while they're gaining literacy, while we're closing gaps. And
Sure.
another book that I wrote with Dr. Katie Topple. She is a PSYOP author and one of my best friends. And also Ton Nguyen. Ton is a consultant and an author of other books as well. We wrote a book called DIY PD that is support for teachers of multilingual learners. It's how to personalize and get your own PD. And so I do a lot of consulting and training and coaching around exactly what you're doing here on this show.
I think it's a great. I think it was a really wise thing for us to talk, because there are areas, and really just kind of researching before having this interview with you, I realized that there are places where our work actually merge. There are places where they kind of cross each other. And I'm hopefully at some point we get to talk about that. We are going to talk about that. I'm not going to let you get away without talking about that. But listen, talking about SLIFE, I think some people have this. They want to take this acronym I'm just going to be honest. They're going to take this acronym and put it in that bucket with all these other acronyms, but it's really at the heart of what we do as ELD teachers. Okay, because let's look at the landscape here. We have students that come in from different countries, right? And some of them, a lot of them probably have formal schooling from where they come from, right? And then peppered in are these students that don't. They've either had gaps of time where they weren't given formal education, or sometimes they haven't had it for any really significant duration of time, or they haven't had it at all. And so they can really play the role that they're understanding, and you're kind of you're doing your thing in the classroom and you're not picking it up right away. You think they're just kind of grabbing it. But as time goes on, you realize they're not grabbing it. And by that time, it's, we're weeks, maybe even months into. I've been in a situation, we went through half a year when a teacher comes in, why isn't the student picking it up? And it wasn't one of my students. It wasn't on my caseload. I'm like, well, let's dig a little into their past. And then we realize, there was a lot of interrupted ed in that child's background. It affects their language acquisition, especially with newcomers, right? To a degree where you cannot put it in with everybody else. It has to be separated so that we can really tackle what those issues are. So in your experiences, like, what are those main issues for teachers to look at, to target?
Well, so I guess it would depend on what the interruption was, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give you an example. I feel like I know when I was in the classroom, this is what threw me for a loop, because I had been the trainer for my district. Like I said, I'm right outside of Houston. So we've had newcomers in our low socioeconomic side of our district. We have a couple of high schools and all the feeder schools where a huge percentage of the students don't speak English. Yeah. I grew up there. My parents are immigrants and that's where they moved. So that's where I grew up. So it's not like we're new to this. It's not like we're new to newcomers. What threw me was when our district, in one of our feeder patterns, a Catholic Charities, they resettle refugees. They made a deal with an apartment complex. And once they made that deal, school had already started, but they started resettling refugees in big numbers because there was this discount on rent. So the middle school in that feeder pattern got, in a couple of weeks, like 32 SLIFE students. And some of these students had never been to school before.
They're in that situation.
A lot of them, in fact. Yep. So that is, again, back then in 2016, the acronym was SLIFE. And I had never heard of it. And someone told me, oh, you're getting a lot of SLIFE kids. And I Googled it and I was like, okay, students with interrupted formal education. Yes, but it's not interrupted. I could tell. And the refugee resettlement company had given us some information. A lot of these kids, they didn't have the background for how to do school, not even the classroom stuff. And so I appreciated when the acronym was changed. It wasn't just interrupted. Some had limited formal education, if any.
Yeah, right.
So what I'm thinking about when you say, okay, what do I need to know? How do I help this student? Well, I mean, first, get to know what they can do. This was my biggest error, because I had some time to reflect on that first semester and how many missteps there were. And there were so many, because we would not prepare for this. So we were being reactive. So we made a ton of mistakes. And we ended up partnering with the kids and other teachers and so many people. We ended up filming a lot of it and trying to figure out what was working and what, like a football player, a football team, let's review the tape and what is working. And so, I mean, at the end of the day, one of the big things I had to change was that I was painting them all with the same brush. I was like, okay, they can't read and they can't, and they can't, and they can't, and they can't. It might have been true. They can't read in English. But they could all do so many things, different things, like any class, like any group of kids. So when you say, what does a SLIFE kid need? Well, can they, let me put 4 in front of you. And all 4 of them are brand new to English. And all 4 of them maybe new to your community, really would test at the level 1 or brand new. They're not able, they're all brand new to being able to read in English. They don't have an ability to read in English, let's say. Okay, so the 4 of them are sitting there. Well, one of them may not be SLIFE. One of them may have quite a bit of education in their heritage language. So they're literate. And let's say they've had an interruption of 3 years, but they're still literate. They can read, because you start to learn to read in K1, 2, 3. Okay, so maybe their reading isn't as strong as another 8th grader, but maybe it is, because not all of our 8th graders born in the United States are reading so strong, right? So let's just say that kiddo has some literacy. Now, the kid sitting next to him also has some literacy, but their heritage languages are very different. This one's literate and it's Spanish. And so the phonetics and the directionality and so much, there are so many common traits with English. So many, not all, but it has a lot of commonalities with English.
Especially with the letters. The letter recognition, yes, but the sound not necessarily, right?
The sound, almost all of them.
Almost.
There's some nuances. So that is a huge advantage over the kid next to him in some ways, because his language may go in the other direction and it may be character-based, or it may be, it doesn't look anything or sound anything like
right.
English.
It says not like the Latin-based.
They're both literate, right? So they have,
yeah.
But in English, they sound the same. Now, the third child has never been to school before, and they don't have any literacy, but it's Spanish, or it's Swahili, or it's Italian. It's something, they have advantages because they've not been living in a black hole. Every time they drive up to a stop sign, it says alto. When they go to a bathroom, it says baño. It's not like they've never seen print before that shares common traits with English.
Right.
Then the fourth kid, again, may have no literacy, and in their world, they grew up with it. Their language doesn't share common. Do you see how wildly different those 4 kids are? Yeah. But as a teacher, you might think they're the same because what they can do in English is the same. And it's not. It's like what you said at the beginning, Jose, is like after a while, you would expect they would be picking things up a little faster. Mm-hmm. Well, if they're literate, even if the language does not share a lot of common traits with English, their literacy in English is going to go faster because they're literate. And they just have an advantage, and when they transfer or sync up what they know. The other 2 have advantages that the first 2 don't have. They're just different. They're just different advantages.
Sure.
And not one of them did I mention anything about a cognitive delay.
Right, because the issue isn't necessarily intellect. The issue is not intellect. The issue is the process. The issue is how the brain is able to process the language and whether or not they're able to draw meaning from it, which kind of bridges where my work is in establishing phonemic awareness with phonics, right? And that's something there's been a lot of pushback on. I know over the years there are people that are, well, but at the end, I think the data speaks for itself. I don't know if you had a chance to read my paper or not, but if not, I'll send you the link and you can check it out. But the data is very, very strong in that if you establish some phonemic awareness with phonics, of course, especially with the older kids, okay, because the younger kids will pick it up faster, but we know that because of the language acquisition device, right? But as the older kids and the adults especially, they can make up for those gaps with phonics. It's
like you said. Well, actually, I think I agree with what you're saying. We cannot skip phonics for anybody learning to read in English. We know that. We've learned that.
Yeah.
It's that.
But there's still for some reason in the education field, it's still like widely not really. Well, it's not promoted enough.
It might be because a lot of people, and I understand this, that what the research shows, and everybody agrees on, there's a joint statement right now from both sides, the Science of Reading people and the National Council for Effective Literacy for Multilingual Learners. It's a joint statement, and everyone agrees that multilingual learners need context. So the context, if I'm trying to teach you phonics in Vietnamese right now and you don't know those words, and I'm just trying to teach you the phonetics of it, out of context, it's going to be very difficult because like a 5-year-old that we try to teach phonics to, they know what a bear is. They know what a girl is when you teach them the g for girl. If I'm showing you a picture of a girl, this is where people are like, well, it's not working and they're not learning. You're showing them a picture of a girl and going g, g, girl. But in their mind, they're thinking n, niña.
Right.
That's just the wrong context. So one of the most, we were talking about Nebraska before we came on, and there's a teacher in Omaha Public Schools. It was the first time I saw super fast phonics acquisition with all her different levels and all the different backgrounds. But her alphabet was an environmental alphabet. Her alphabet was the S from Starbucks, the Y from YouTube, the M from McDonald's. So she got to know the class and what's in their neighborhood, the N from Nebraska because they're sitting in Nebraska, the O from Omaha because they know they're in Omaha. The context was the alphabet you buy from the store, where for a 5-year-old born here is not the right. It's supposed to trigger the sound because they know the image and it's burned in their brain. That's a bear. That's a girl. So the tweak that she did was just using environmental things, but the ones the kids knew.
Right.
And that, I mean, they can learn to associate those sounds with the things they already know, just like any 5-year-old can learn to do that. It's when we're trying to force a phonetic sound onto a label, and I want you to learn that this is a girl so that you can trigger the gus sound. That's backwards.
Yeah. So this was the approach that I took, and I understand that. And this is why with adults you didn't want to lose their attention. So the contextualized instruction was critical for that to take place, and that was very, very much part of the study trials that I did. And I found that if you were to present it in a contextualized way, obviously that there would be more buy-in from them, because it's like you said, everything you said, it's like we're on the same road. You and I are actually traveling the same road.
I think because you've worked with adults and older language learners, you're like a lot of our secondary ESOL teachers and ESL teachers, you recognize that whole relationship thing is super important.
Oh yeah.
And engagement.
Yeah.
If it's boring and it's such a gift for our ESL teachers that we can use whatever we can use a lot of times. You can use whatever might be of when I see pushback, it's because people feel like, oh, phonics work is going to take me away from these engaging lessons. It doesn't need to.
Right. No, it's not. That's what
it doesn't need to.
Probably why
together.
Right. That's probably why a lot of, and not to toot my own horn here, but the textbook that I came out with is probably why a lot of teachers really enjoy using it, because of that, because it like the students are able to relate to it. They're able to engage with it. And, there's all these other components that go with it, because it's not like it came out of like nowhere. Like it came out of years and years. I think it took me, honestly, Dr. Salva, I'm not going to lie, it took me about 7 years to do this.
Oh my goodness.
7 years, because every time with every class, it had to be like, it was always like a debrief after to see what worked, what did you like, what didn't you like, why did this one you like more than this one. And
I know you wrote a book about the real world, right? I mean, it's like using English, but for real purposes.
Right. Yeah. So like, it's not just a matter of like identifying the vowels. It's identifying the vowels in like words that we use, like pharmacy, police station, things that are part of the community, things that are like the family literacy level, because that's where. So they're identifying the vowels, but they're also learning the vocabulary. The vocabulary is relevant to what they're doing. So it's exactly what you were just saying about it, the contextualized way. If you present it in such, and you razzle dazzle, you have to, as a teacher. I think the real good teachers are able to modify and tweak their lessons and really bring in the real world that's relevant to them, that's going to be resonating with the students, like you said.
Yeah, I know we're on the same page. Like
we're definitely on the same road. There's no question about it. I am convinced of that now.
So you were asking it originally, though, like, what do we need to know? What are they missing if they're SLIFE? And that was the biggest lesson for me, is we need to first figure out what they can do. I don't even care how many years they've been out of education. I just want to know what they can do. And so the sooner we can figure that out, what can you do in English? What can you do in your heritage language? What can we leverage? Because if you don't have any literacy in your heritage language at all, you were somewhere during those years.
Yeah.
And wherever you were building skills that can really help with your persistence and your perseverance and your grit and your, what you bring to our classroom in terms of perspective and your appreciation for education. There's so many things.
Sure.
There's even research that if you didn't have technology as a young person, so if you weren't in formal school, you probably didn't have an iPad that you were playing around with. So then the brain develops differently, and there's advantages to the brain that didn't have that technology in the formative years. So, I mean, it's just, there's neural pathways that are atrophying. I mean, that part of our brain, the part that wonders and things.
Mm-hmm.
So I find that all very fascinating, because kids aren't going to say, I can do more. They're not going to say, give me more rigorous things to
Absolutely not. No, they are not.
most of them are not. You might get that one or two that do
Yeah,
that.
there's going to be some, of course.
But we have to challenge ourselves. I need Jose being my thought partner going, Carol, I bet your kids could do more. I bet if you put it up higher and let them work together and make them comfortable, and then I would do that for you. It's kind of how we're out here on social media and watching each other's videos. We need to remind ourselves that they can probably do more.
Yeah. Oh no. And sometimes they don't even know what they can do,
No.
and that's why you gotta, as a seasoned teachers are able to kind of, they're able to figure that out. They're able to draw it out. And, it was like, I'll give you a real quick anecdotal example. Like, there was a student last year, I think it was a 6th grader. And every teacher is like, this child does not want, this child doesn't get it. This child has, they were trying to refer him for like a, IEP or something. And he had like some kind of learning disability. I'm like, no, this kid does not have a learning disability, and it's not a language thing. And I sat him down, I pulled him away from the class, right? Just one-on-one, just me and him, just sit down. Right. And I gave him some paper, and we had a conversation, and I said, I want you to show me what you can write. Just show me what you can write. And it was just wasn't like a pressure thing. Let's take your time. This kid, I'm telling you, wrote something this long. See? And it was intricate, and it was well formatted. It was just a well-written piece, and it was coherent, it made sense. And then I showed this to the other teachers, and they were just like flabbergasted. There's no way this kid wrote that. You must have dictated it to him. I'm like, no, even if I did, he would have to have been able to spell everything correctly. You just don't know. And it may be the circumstance, it may be the environment. Whatever those things are, the teacher has to figure that out. And then just kind of like process of elimination. It's work. Yeah.
Yeah. There's some things, I totally agree. I used to get so overwhelmed by that. Like, how am I supposed to figure out? There's 32 of them, and this, and the numbers, they kept enrolling, and they enroll all year long.
All the time.
How am I supposed to be figuring this all out? So there are a few things. Everybody falls into their own things they're comfortable with that have worked, that are differentiated. And so we settled into academic conversations. So just structuring conversations where everybody could talk about something. And so we're going back to what you were saying. Is there a compelling topic, something they want to talk about? Are we going to meet with somebody in the real world over Zoom that, they were maybe an immigrant, or they have a business now, and how do they use math, or whatever? It's going to be something authentic. Or we watched a funny little 2-minute video with no words, and we're going to talk about what we thought was happening. Anyway, you can get everybody using all their language, communicating with each other. Kids can communicate with each other, even if they don't.
They will. They absolutely will.
Yeah. So we're getting some meaning from them. We're echoing some sentence starters, like I saw, I thought, it seems like, whatever. And so we're getting some repetition and language out of their mouths, but really I'm trying to get their voice. I want to hear what they think.
And that's fascinating that we talk about that. That's actually a really good segue to what I was just about to go into, which is, honoring the full identity of English learners, right? So I was going to ask you this: in your experience, what classroom practices best elevate a learner's story without overwhelming them with output too soon? Now, this is a very, very important caveat, because in the public school system, that's the only thing I can speak of with any because I'm in it, there is such an emphasis on production of content, and that is the stress for the evaluation. So much rests on that, and for the students to produce that. Now, for their stories, and they all have a story, and they all, maybe someone want to share that story if it's not too horrifying, because there's always that component. But there's always that pressure from the districts for the students to produce a story. So when is the right time, and when is it where you're pushing it too soon?
Oh gosh, I bet you would agree that it's different for each kid. It's different, and
The
that
district
whole,
doesn't want to hear that, by the way.
I feel like there's a way to do a unit. Let's say the beginning of the school year, and you want to do a get to know you activity. And I was always nervous. Am I going to trigger trauma if I ask about what they did this summer and things like that? And those are real concerns, because we're talking about kids who've lived through hard things. And now you're asking them to talk about these hard things. But some kids, some people, that's exactly what they need and want, is an opportunity to write or speak or draw or represent what happened to them. My colleague, her name is Dr. Marie Heath, does so much work on acculturation. She got a class approved, one of the only classes approved in a while for language learners here in Texas. It's an acculturation class, and she has students, they draw their hands and they write something on each finger, like a time when, a time when, a time when, these kinds of things. She's just giving them opportunities to use very little language, very little output, but represent with images and things like that, things they want to talk about. So I think one thing that is really important is choice. So we would have, I remember what was very popular is I would offer students a way they could tell about a time they were proud. They could tell about someone they admired in their lives. They could talk about their favorite song and why it was meaningful to them. They could talk about their journey. They could research and explain their name. And all of these projects, we put together sentence frames and paragraph frames, and they would I could interview them. We could translate this. It was just getting a few answers. First of all, they had a choice in what they're comfortable writing about. And then I might be the scribe to fill in a few blanks, but it's their words and their ideas. And a lot of times they didn't want to just answer those questions. They were interested in talking about their favorite foods through their journey or from their home country. So they wanted to talk more about it. And so it wasn't just fill in the blank. So if I'm scribing for this child, I'm not the author. They're the author. It's their voice. This is the output that the district wants. The district wants their voice. Now, I'm the language acquisition teacher, so I can tell you how to say that in English. I could even record it for you. And then I can give it back to you as a student. It's your words. You can listen and practice it and practice it and practice it and practice it and practice it. And I want you to track the print with your eyes. And then we're going to do that phonetics work. We're going to lift some things out of it. I mean, there are just so many things you can do. So I think my answer is offer enough choice to where students have a choice that's comfortable. And then there are ways to scaffold the output, but it's still student-centered. And our job as language acquisition teachers is to offer them the opportunities to rehearse and repeat and acquire phrases, high frequency word recognition, directionality, one-to-one word matching. They're going to reinforce the phonetics lessons that you're giving them. There's a lot that can be done in what we just did, which was a shared writing. And that was just the rough draft.
Yeah.
If we wanted to take it through the writing process, we could.
Which is really going into the whole part about, orthographic mapping, right? And this kind of goes back to the whole, you can't have orthographic mapping without having phonemic awareness. And you can't have phonemic awareness without students having some idea of how phonics works, right? It's all interconnected. I think the sooner sooner teachers and administrators and districts understand that these are various moving parts that are happening simultaneously, and they all work, you know, they all work together as like a motor in a car. You know, there are a lot of parts moving, and there's a lot of things that work in unison in order for that to be successful. I think we want our students to move from reading to writing, right? Because at the end of the day, we want that output. That's what the district wants. That's what everybody wants. That's what they want. That's what the students want. They want to be
Oh,
able to produce
absolutely. Everybody
the
wants to be
output,
able
right? Everybody wants this, but in order to get to the output point, we need to have all these things behind it, right? And that takes time. And that was the whole point about, you know, rushing it. You know, people want it now. And to your point, I think what you suggested is perfectly valid. It's perfectly fine for the ELD teacher or the language teacher to work with those students to kind of help them produce that, because it's not actually yours, it's theirs. And that's kind of like the training wheels on the bicycle, but they still have to work through it, you know, in order to acquire the phonemic awareness, to acquire the ability to read on their own. And that's what's going to essentially help them become writers, you know, on their own, because that whole word recognition, as you're talking about, that has to be automatic, you know that. And that can only happen with, as you said, again, repetition and just familiarity with it. But ultimately, for them to produce their own original content, you know, there's a lot of things that got to be going on in that brain, a lot of things simultaneously.
Yeah, I've been impressed with every SLIFE student that when they get interested in a topic, when they feel valued from day one, they could be the author. They know things we don't know.
Yep.
And we have technology now that would help them tell their stories before they can write even one word. Because it's not about, they're, like you said, there's so many things coming together. But if you were to go out and buy a book off a shelf, like your books that you wrote, I could write them down for you and I could be the editor. I'm not the author.
Are you offering?
Not at all, because
I can send it to you, you know.
But I mean, you're the author because they're
Yeah.
your ideas. They're your ideas. No matter who writes them down and no matter who corrects my spelling, I'm still the author.
Sure.
So what I love about that thinking is they can be an author right now, and we can use that text to help them with the foundational things that you're talking about.
Yeah.
That is some of the most compelling text. I don't have to convince anybody to read that. It's their writing. They want to read it. Yeah. Okay, well, now let's lift a couple of words that have some conventions that you don't yet have. You already know most of the sounds because maybe they do. I have to track that and show them. But here's some sounds and blends that you don't have. So let's go through all your writing and find them and the room. So like you said, it's that authentic writing that would be more interesting to use possibly. And I love when you get the class talking about something they all care about, and then you do a shared writing, and that writing, because you're the teacher, can be super complex, like just longer structures and things, but it's still them. They may not be able to say it like this yet, but just give them about a week of rereading that and they'll have it. And then we can cut it apart and we can put it back together and we can cut the sounds apart and they can put them back together. And it changed the whole way that I was thinking when I had thought partners show me quit focusing only on what they can't do. Those gaps will close quickly when they're engaged and doing a lot more of this, more minutes a day, not trying to figure out complex text, trying to reread familiar text for fluency, and layering your phonics lessons once they have more context.
You know, it's funny. I found something of all places. I found it on Teachers Pay Teachers, right? And it was something because it was, you know, when you're in middle school, they have some pretty deep and dark text that kids have to read, right?
You're so right.
And one of them, one of them was a Midsummer's Night's Dream, right?
Okay.
And it's an interesting story if you're familiar with it. Did something happen to your camera, Dr.
Oh wait, what happened? Okay, I'm sorry.
There you are.
I didn't know that I put something there. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
So anyways, this whoever wrote this, whoever did this was did this obviously because they were working with newcomers, and they put like they first of all they took they took Shakespeare, they turned it into like one paragraph, right? Which is
Okay.
fascinating. Okay, how he was able to do that is fascinating to me. But he used like pictures above the words as they're
Interesting.
reading, so they were able to kind of reference the images as they're reading, and it's flowing, and it's and they were able to draw the meanings of what was going on. It was still a very confusing. If you're familiar with the story, it's very confusing, but for them, they were able to understand it. So, like you were saying, it's like if you're presenting it, the students, you don't really know where they are yet. So
You don't.
they could really be some kids, and I've been surprised many times in my career where I just like this child is going to need a lot of work, and then they surprise me like, whoa, where did this come from? You just got to give them the right opportunity. You never know what's going to trigger it. You never know what's going to open the book for them.
I know
And you
people.
never really know they're just going to come out of left field and be like, and it's going to blow your mind. And it's a beautiful thing to see as a teacher.
I do. I feel like our jobs are the best jobs in the building.
It is.
You get to see growth.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
and those moments, I mean, those are why everybody got into teaching.
Yeah. And I think we're probably the last ones because everyone else gets burnt out. We're like the last ones that are in the teaching field. They're like, actually, like, yeah, we love it. This is a fantastic thing. And everybody else is like, what are you talking about? Pulling my hair out.
Yeah, they're very sweet. Usually they're grateful often. And so, I don't know. I just love it. I love it. They're still kids. They're still
Yeah, they are. And and that's the thing. And they don't stay kids very long. And I had plenty of times where students come back, Mr. Torres. I'm like, whose deep voice is that? I'm like, wait a minute, last time I saw you were like this, and now you're like this.
That's wonderful. We need more middle school teachers like you. Thank you for that.
Oh, listen, I've been middle school for most of my career. I love it. This year I'm going to be with third graders because my principal wanted it to be that way, and I'm totally fine with it. My certifications, I told him my certification says K to 12.
Yep,
so any one of those grades, you put me where you think I will fit, and,
awesome.
and I will find a way to make it work.
Awesome.
Anyway, shall we continue? Because I really want to pick your brain about a couple of things. See, but a lot of my work leans on Birch's literary framework, right? And that's going back to what I've said repetitiously in this interview already, where there's a lot of moving parts. So it's, what's on the top can't happen without what's going on at the bottom, and it's just kind of going like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
With starting at the phoneme level all the way up to producing complex sentences. So I'm thinking like that. There's because of that we probably have the same ideas about approaching how to remedy where the students are in need. I'm pretty sure we're on the same wavelength here. I'm pretty sure, but I was just curious if you had all looked at Birch's work at all.
No, tell me more about it.
So essentially, what Birch's is talking about is going back to the whole idea of orthographic mapping, right, and how that functions within the brain, right, and you have to have starting with the sound recognition first, and then associating that sound with a letter symbol, right, and then the string of sounds producing a word, right, and then having that word fixed with a image.
Okay.
And then once that happens, then okay, well, if this is a cherry and this is a picture of the cherry, so every time I hear the word cherry, this is the word that I'm presented with until I can say the word cherry and I can picture it in my mind.
Okay.
We do that until they're able to picture the word cherry in their mind. And now they're like, now we're using the word cherry, like, okay, I like to eat cherries. And then we show somebody eating cherries. And we do this until where when you say the word, or when you say this, whatever the short phrase is or the sentence, that they're able to conceptualize it in their minds, right? So this is all happening so that they can eventually read the text, right? In their minds, being able to, just like what we do when we pick up a book or anything, when we read it and it's being read, and that is happening in our brains, being able to manufacture images of what's happening in real time, right? Until finally we're able to produce something of our own based on what we acknowledge or what we have in our background, and the writing process begins. So all of those parts are working together. But Birches was basically saying that you can't get to the writing piece until you get all the other stuff behind it, and they're all kind of working in unison. So basically, what we've been touching on back and forth throughout this interview is basically the bits and pieces of what Birch's work is all about. And I relied on that tool heavily going into the research that I was doing, because I wanted to prove that even with older adults, and I had students that were well into their 70s, that even with them, phonics was extremely beneficial to them academically. They were able to make gains, they were able to produce, work, and their confidence level raised, and they were very engaged, and they moved on to the next level, because that was my job. My job was to get them from level 1 to level 2. And so I found a way to do that. But the only way I was able to do that was to put all these pieces together. And that's the work that we do, right? And it's no different than what you're doing. You're just calling it something different than what I'm calling it, but it's the same thing. Tomato, right?
Yeah, I think we're just coming at it from different angles, because I agree 100% that phonics and a student and a person being able to independently write down their thoughts in, let's say, English, whatever the target language is. So you can map those sounds to the words, and you know how to form those letters, and you know how to write that down.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's an important skill for everybody to learn. So
Yep.
I'm in agreement with you that that's important. Where we might be thinking just a little bit differently is I feel that everybody can be successful in the writing process immediately, and taking a student all the way through the writing process before they're able to write anything down on their own. You can take them through the entire writing process,
Mm-hmm.
and then use the piece to teach what you just said they need. What you just said they need to be able to independently write.
Yeah, that's the key. That's the
I
key
agree.
term.
I
Mhm.
agree. But I'm gonna use an example. If we had a student that spoke English and was born here, but they had some inability to physically write.
Mhm.
It was more of a physical disability. So
Okay.
someone else would need to write for them.
Mhm.
They're still an author. They can still go through the writing process. I wouldn't say you have to learn to do that to be able
Mhm.
to be published, or to be able to see, the writing is a process, right? It's not a do it like this kind of thing. So the beginning of the writing process, we don't care how you spell it. We don't care if you spell it.
Right. That's
Beginning of the
true.
writing
That's very true. We're very lenient when it comes to the spelling.
Well, it's
Sure.
not even leniency. It's you're right, because it's encouraged.
Yeah.
It's a brain dump, it's drawing, it's listing, it's anything to get the ideas down. And then the second part of the writing process is to start to put those into a rough draft. We still don't care how it's spelled. We're not supposed to care how it's spelled until the end of the writing process, when you're about to publish it. You're going to go back and edit your work and make sure that the reader is going to receive it correctly. That is a great place to go. Do you think this is all spelled correctly? Because you don't, or does your periods or your commas and all of that. So I feel like we are on the exact same page of what we expect kids or people or adults or anybody to be able to do.
Mhm.
I'm just a huge advocate that of flipping it and
Sure.
starting with, we can tell your story right now, and you can be an author right now, and every single part of the writing process, here's how you're going to engage in it, where you're still driving it, And then when we have some print on paper in English, I'm going to turn that back to you, and you're going to do foundational work, because what you're saying is so important. They need to learn that, language has patterns.
Yeah.
And so all of this that we wrote down for you, and definitely we want to make sure it's correct before we start asking you to use it to learn the patterns of English. But I
Sure,
don't know.
and I get that. I totally get that, Dr. Salva, and I agree with you. But here's where I'm going to put it on its head. Okay,
I think there's more than
let's take that same student. Hold on. Let's take that same student. We can't write. Okay, and we're going to present that student with a math problem. Okay. Now they have to read this math problem. They need to read this math problem, and they need to solve it. Because let's be realistic here. What's happening in a schoolhouse isn't just taking place in the English language room. Okay, they have to deal with science. They have to deal with math. They have to deal with social studies, and they are required to read these things. So while we can be, as ELD teachers, take a step back and say, yeah, they don't have to get the writing part perfectly. They don't have to spell everything perfectly, but they do have to read it. And so that's why you can't ignore this. You can't just put it on the back shelf. And I'm not saying you. I'm just saying in general. You can't ignore this, because if you really want to put a fine point on it, these students are required to read and make sense of text and then give answers to them. And so therefore they have to know how to read. In order to do that, they need to be able to have okay.
No, we're 100% in agreement.
Yeah.
I'm saying I feel like I can get them to be more fluent readers with the process that I explained. I mean, because we are focusing on reading. It's called language experience approach, and it is listening, speaking, reading, and writing all together.
Yep.
And the goal is to move the needle. The goal is not, and I'm sure you would agree, that they need to become a proficient reader in 1 year. The goal is they need to move one proficiency level.
Absolutely.
In 1 year. So,
now, see, here's the thing, Dr. Sal. I don't know if you're aware of this. I don't know if you're aware. I'm sorry. But you said you touched this something, and it's irks me for the last year, because districts, especially here in Maryland where I live, okay, they've made these incremental changes in terms of what students' target growth is, and they've made that we used to have a lot more leeway, and now they've compressed it to within a certain amount of years. And like, if you don't meet these targets with this amount of time, then essentially you're a failure. I'm just going to say it. And that's not fair.
No,
it's not fair. Not to, as a teacher, it's not fair. It's certainly not fair to the students.
Right.
So how do you address, I mean, now I'm talking something that's way beyond it. We're outside of our arena now.
No, I'm sure all around the world, there's just things that we feel like are not just for the kids. I feel like we can look at what I know that I can tell you certainly is my bar was too low before. Yeah. My bar was too low before. I was not sure how a secondary student who came into my classroom who could not read or write in their heritage language and had never been to school before was supposed to be successful. And those kids, I can show you where they are in college right now. They're killing it. They're crushing it. But they failed a lot of tests that first year and the second year and in summer school. But I'm going to tell you something else, Jose. So did I. I failed. I failed.
Hello, guilty.
Okay. Then why are we, whose timeline are we on? I know that they're measured because our states have measurements, our class, and they're necessary. Yeah. I needed somebody to tell me they can do more. Here's the bar. Yep. Now, whether that kid met that bar, met expectations or not, I could show them growth. I can say, okay, so maybe you didn't quite get there, but we're already set up for you. Every high school's already set up for a kid who doesn't pass. You get to keep everything you learn. So we're just going to keep at it. We're going to do it again. Some of these things you're going to take again. So did your teacher. I took algebra 3 times. You're going to be every single time you take it. Yep. You come with what you got to keep from last time, and your language and your literacy. My God, if there's anything that you have said that I would just put up, I want you to say it louder and louder, is you are not the only teacher where they should be listening, speaking, reading, and writing in English.
Absolutely.
That should be happening in class. Yeah,
Preach, preacher,
right,
preach.
right. As language acquisition teachers, I felt so like, how am I going to get them across the finish line? How am I going to do this? I
Yeah.
just need them to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And then a lot of our work is showing the other teachers how one sentence a day in an echo or copying, because it's part of your instruction. All
Yeah.
kids should talk about math and write about math, and one sentence a day would equal 200 more
Yep.
sentences. And then my job is to tell my language learner, anytime the teacher reads aloud to you, even if it's just one sentence a day, you have to be watching, because
Yeah.
now you're getting the directionality and the high frequency words and the oracy and all of the things. And we're working on the orthographic mapping over here because it's so technical, the things you need at a foundational level. But
Yeah.
6 other times in your day,
Yeah.
when you go home and listen to your YouTube channel,
Hello.
turn on the closed captioning. If we can show them to flood themselves with just the reinforcement,
Yeah.
then when they come to our classrooms, whether it's once a week or twice, or whatever it is, we can partner with them and show them growth. And I know I feel like I need people like you in my life. I need people who, I do. I need you to show me other ways,
Mhm.
because we need to think, okay, if this doesn't work, then would this work? And then let me call who said, would that work? Because everybody's so different. Our students are so
Yep.
different. But I also need the encouragement. I need
Mm.
to know that you're out there in the world helping teachers, helping students. You're there if I need you, because there might not be anybody in my building. I can
Mm.
turn on your podcast. I want to show the kids, here is you also, here is you in 10 years. You see this young man,
Mhm.
he's in college. Well, he failed a lot of classes and he came, I want to find people in the world who have gone through the same kind of SLIFE issues that they went through, and it was challenging, but they're on the other side of it.
Yeah.
We have that example for
Mhm.
every type of situation. And I just need them to not give up and to keep hope, because I might not meet Marilyn's, I might not meet expectations.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is, there are going to be so many times in life that
Well,
I'm not
they
meet it, but I'm
they
not going to
changed it. I think across the board, a lot of districts like to change the goalpost. That just comes with the territory. It's a new sheriff in town. Somebody gets a new position.
we
You
just
know,
point the kids in the right direction and make sure they
yeah.
don't give up hope. Because
I
like
get.
you said, they come back to you with this deep voice and you're like, oh my God, grow up.
Who is this guy?
I
You
love
know, No, I didn't tell you. You touched on a lot of great things. I mean, let me tell you. I mean, for me as a TLT teacher and going to a PD, and I'm sure I'll be going to a PD next week, and I'm sure your name's going to come up, and it's a very proud moment for me to be able to have this conversation with you. It's just fascinating to me that there aren't more teachers that want to engage this way. And I know that
I
maybe I'm the kook. I don't know. Maybe I'm the freak.
You're not. You're the answer. You're the answer. Because we need, you put kids together at a table and they all have different ideas. And like you
Uh-huh.
said, it clicks, they'll actually work together. And
Mhm.
this one can't write yet, but they've seen an active volcano and this is about tectonic plates. So
Yeah.
their voice is important. And this kid knows a different way. And it's just so fantastic.
Oh yeah, let me tell you, I
Oh,
have these conversations with my Latin American kids, especially when we talk about like earthquakes and stuff, and
oh,
they have stories,
they're
about
forensic
earthquakes, and I'm like, what
knowledge.
is that? Like, I don't even know what that is.
But I think that's where, like, you and I, and we could bring anybody listening to this or watching this, we
Mhm.
could go to dinner and we could have this lively conversation. Like,
Yeah.
I'm leaving this conversation because you brought things that I had to ask you, who is Birch? And let me speak more about orthographic mapping, because my
Yeah.
kids benefited if I'd have known more about that. I think,
Mhm.
like, I know you're like me, where I just want to hear other people and I want to take what I can learn from that. And so I feel like more people should hear other ways that people are teaching, because we're all trying to get to the same place.
Sure. Well, I
And
mean, look,
we are that group of kids.
but see, that's the thing. You're open about it, though. You're open-minded about it. I'm glad you're open, and I'm listening to you, and I'm taking a lot of this stuff. I'm writing my notes down.
It's
I'm
hard.
gonna go back and watch this probably a dozen times and pick up every
Personal.
little word that I missed along the way. The point is this: you're open about it. Where
Well, I love
sometimes
it. I have
sometimes
changed
we're
mind a lot on that whole phonetics thing. I have changed my. I have to.
Listen. This is something. This has been an uphill battle for me for a very long time. It's funny because like I'll show my students an old video like of me like in the early days of this phonics stuff, right? And like my beard is still black, right? and my students are like, "Wait, that's not you, Mr. Torres. It can't possibly be you." I'm like, "Yeah, it is." So you see, that's me. They're like, "No, your hair is black."
Oh, don't say that. That's so funny. But no,
Well,
I
I've been
think
doing this a long time, kid. Come on,
they
cut me
they
some slack.
need they need to know that we are learning alongside them.
Yeah.
I do. I think
I
that you.
learn from my kids too. I mean, I let them know, like, listen,
Oh my God,
it's a
they are.
two-way street. I mean, I'm sure, when you want them to go, you don't want them to learn something and move on. And a lot of my kids, going on to high school and they did other things and whatever. I did my job, right? But at the same time, there are those connections along the way, and that's fun. For me, it's not about that. It used to be like, I don't know if you remember in the early days, Dr. Salva, when those first few years are like, you would get sentimental at the end, like, oh, you feel sad the school year is over, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
I don't really feel that way anymore. I feel a sense of elation that these boys and girls are gonna go out there and they're gonna make something good happen. I get
Yes.
excited
You're
for them. It's
proud of
no
them.
longer a melancholy feeling for me. It's more of an excitement for them because they're the young ones. They're the ones that are coming up. I'm already on this side of 50, so
That's
it's like,
beautiful.
it's a let them this. I'm trying to do my part in cultivating young minds that are going to be, you know, useful and productive in society.
Well, God bless you for doing that. And not only teaching them, but the content that you put out there, your books, your show, the connections, the way you push the thinking of
Mm.
everybody watching, and you're open to. We're all supposed to be open, but teaching such a personal thing
Sure.
that you kind of need to hear messages more than once to start going, okay, maybe I should shift the way I'm thinking or add this to my thinking.
Mhm.
I really appreciate that you're out there offering opportunities for all of us to keep learning.
And I want to keep learning because this work, and I even say this in my paper that I'm going to say, and I'll say to Lee, hopefully you'll check it out. This is like, I'm not saying that this is the end all be all. I'm saying that there needs to be more research.
Yeah.
Other people need to take where I left off and keep going. I did this on my own. I didn't have any university back me. There's no money involved. I did this all on my own. So like, imagine if there was a group of people with a university backing them and, and money behind it.
When are you going to get your doctorate?
It's funny. I actually just got a call today. I got to call them back tomorrow. I'm really interested in a couple of different programs. I'm really eyeing that University of Pittsburgh. Hopefully I can start that coursework soon. But it's not really coursework. It's how it is with it.
I
I
know.
already got it. There's a buddy of mine who's got 2 or 3 doctors, I think by now. He's out in Beijing and he's
But
like,
then other people going through their program will stand on your shoulders once the university does. Once you put it out there, there's funding for things it's backed by. There are other people that will take that. And then, like you're saying, the end of your dissertation is always, here's the more research I recommend.
yeah. So
Really,
I think a lot of the legwork's there already.
yeah, you've already earned it.
I've already got like a lot of it done. Like,
You do. All right. I think
so
we
maybe you can when we're done, you can send me some recommendations of programs. I would love to reach out to them.
Thomas, we love it.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Everybody, Dr. Carol Salva. Let me tell you, this is the most exciting interview I've had in a very long time. I got goosebumps. I was very excited going into this. I was telling my wife, I was like, she's like, are you like pacing? I'm like, I'm not pacing. I'm not pacing.
That's so pretty. That's so sweet and flattering.
I'm just going to talk to somebody I admire and somebody that I can't wait to talk to.
You tell your wife. I'm gonna let her talk to my husband. Probably both. They just roll their eyes at us like, y'all.
Yeah, they do.
Y'all are way too into this. Well, this is what happens when we get together with other people that are that passionate. So tell her I said thank you.
I will.
Come and do this show. I really appreciate.
Me too. I'm so happy we did this, and I will send you. Like I said, I will send you the audio separately. I'll probably put this out over the weekend.
Oh, I can't
because
wait.
I can't wait to put this out. But also, is there any books that you have coming out that you want to plug? I mean, I'm going to put it in the
So
description.
nice. That's so nice. Really, it was just published a couple months ago, our second edition of the Boosting Achievement book. And
Boosted Achievement. Yes, I was going to ask you. We were got so caught up in everything else. We didn't even talk about the books.
That's okay.
I didn't talk about mine either. So
a lot of what you said, I know you'll appreciate, because we had to update it. We didn't have things about how you track growth and students who might not have the foundations of literacy versus students that do, and how do you have them in the same ESL classroom. And so I'm hoping, well, I know I just appreciate that a lot of people helped us and gave us examples for that. So you can find that at sidelitseducation.com or on Amazon, or my blog. It's Salva blog, salvac.edublogs.org, and my podcast too. And hopefully this show will come out on my podcast too.
Yes, and indeed, please. I mean, I would be I'm equally honored, believe me. Equally
I think we interviewed each other.
I know we've been eyeing each other for a while, and I'm just so happy. But yes, any other links I'm going to include in the description of the video, and perhaps you'll put it in the description of your audio, and then this way our listeners and viewers can find your work there.
Thank you.
Any last words before we sign off for tonight?
Just thank you to everybody watching this. If you're watching me and Jose talk about language acquisition,
you can tell we're really into this, right?
You are our people. We have you up on a pedestal.
Yes.
We appreciate you. You seriously, you are the answer. And just keep moving forward like the kids. You're doing great work. And I'm honored that you would listen to us. So I'm honored that you had me on the show, Jose. And I am honored for anybody that's watching this show.
And hey, if maybe we do this again at some point, maybe I'll come on your show.
Yeah,
in a separate way.
We absolutely do that. There you go.
And please, if you don't mind talking to your buddy, Dr. Katie Topple,
absolutely.
I would love to have her on here.
Maybe
you put in a good word for me.
I will. Absolutely will. She is. She's
another one I've been eyeing for a while.
Okay, I'll tell her. You watch when y'all see her on an upcoming show. You're gonna know.
I'm gonna be enjoying that one just as much. Thank you so much, Dr. Carol. Salva, everybody, and please go out and get her book and order it on Amazon right now. Boosting Achievement. I'm sure my district will be handing me a copy, so I won't have to buy one. So I'm just, special.
Okay, well, thanks so much again.
Same here. But I'm signing off, and until next time, God bless.